My friends, let us come together for a few moments in quiet recognition of that presence which goes before us, accompanies us, and remains, even when the world appears loud and demanding. Let us rest in the awareness that there is, at this very instant, an invisible something within you and within me and within all life that lives us, sustains us, moves us, and reveals itself when we turn toward it in stillness. Now, I want to speak with you about something that touches almost every sincere seeker who has walked this spiritual path. It is a matter that has puzzled many, discouraged some, and confused nearly all at one time or another. It is this: how is it that men and women who have awakened to spiritual truth, who have studied, prayed, meditated, who have touched moments of illumination, still find themselves suffering, still anxious, still fearful, still troubled? How can it be that one who has glimpsed the infinite still trembles before a bank statement, a diagnosis, an argument, or an uncertain tomorrow? It is not because you lack devotion. It is not because you lack sincerity. It is not because you have failed spiritually. No, it is because a subtle, almost invisible habit has continued to operate within you, a habit carried over from the old way of living, a habit that almost every sincere student brings with them. It is the habit of seeking second. You see, the majority of the world, even the religious world, even the metaphysical world, lives under the assumption that the outer world is cause and consciousness is effect. That circumstances dictate peace, that conditions determine safety, that the world has the first word, and we must respond to it. And when this assumption remains, even after spiritual awakening, the individual continues to suffer, not because truth is absent, but because truth is not yet first in their consciousness. This is why a person may meditate in the morning, feel uplifted, and yet fall into fear when the day's first problem appears. It is why someone may have felt the presence of God one moment, and in the next feel abandoned by that same presence. It is why a person may seek God with their mind while their heart trembles before the world. There is no fault in this. It is the human experience, but it is not the spiritual way. For the Master said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God," and it is in this one passage that the entire mystery is revealed. First, not second. First, not after the fear is felt. First, not after the problem is analyzed. First, not after the mind has exhausted itself with planning, defending, resisting, or worrying. You see, the suffering of the spiritually awake does not arise because they lack the kingdom. The kingdom is fully present within them. It is here, now, complete. The suffering arises because in the moment of challenge, they turn first to the problem and only later to the presence. They seek second. And so, this hour, let us gently, quietly, lovingly examine this habit. Let us learn what it means to reverse it. Let us see why even an enlightened glimpse is not enough if we continue to give power to appearances. Let us understand the reason spiritually mature people still tremble. Let us understand why inner peace comes and goes. Let us understand why moments of illumination give way to moments of fear. And let us discover together how to live in such a way that the kingdom is not a momentary experience, but a permanent foundation, not by force, not by effort, not by spiritual striving, but by recognition, simple recognition that the presence within you is the only power, the only law, the only cause, and it must be acknowledged first. When that shift occurs, when consciousness precedes circumstance, something marvelous and sacred begins to unfold. You find that you no longer live at the mercy of the world. You no longer tremble at threats, nor lean on appearances for reassurance. You begin to live from the inside out. This, then, my friends, is where our journey begins. With a simple understanding that the reason spiritually awake people still suffer is not because truth is hidden from them, but because they have not yet learned how to make truth first. Let us go on from here quietly, gently, into this understanding. Let us continue, my friends, from the place of quiet recognition. Let us remain inwardly still, for the kingdom of God does not enter with observation. It does not come through words alone. It comes through the silent awareness behind the words. Now, in order to go further, we must understand with absolute clarity what I mean and what the infinite way teaches when we speak of seeking second. This is not a phrase to be taken lightly. This is not an accusation aimed at human imperfection. This is not a moral failure to be corrected. It is a description of a conditioned habit of consciousness, a deeply ingrained reflex of the human mind that responds to appearances as if they were powers, laws, or causes. To seek second means this: you look to the world first, and you look to God second. You may not do this consciously. You may not do this deliberately, but observe carefully within yourself, and you will see how subtly and automatically it happens. A bill arrives, and immediately the mind begins calculating. A symptom appears, and fear rises before you even realize it. A relationship becomes strained, and the heart tenses in self-defense. A career disappointment unfolds, and the mind begins creating future scenarios of loss. In each of these examples, the world is consulted first. The condition is granted power first. The appearance is acknowledged before the presence is recognized. This is seeking second. Seeking second is the moment you say, consciously or subconsciously, here is a condition that has power over my peace. Seeking second is the moment you believe that something external can determine your inner state. It is giving authority to the appearance and treating the presence within you as the afterthought. And yet, it is not your fault. You were trained to believe that appearances are real. You were trained to believe that matter is cause. You were trained to believe that circumstances dictate experience. You are undoing centuries of conditioning. But listen now, quietly. This is what the Master pointed to when he said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God." He did not mean, seek the kingdom after thinking through the problem. Seek the kingdom after you have reacted emotionally. Seek the kingdom after the fear has already taken root. No, he meant, seek the kingdom before you look at the world. Before you engage the problem, before you analyze the situation, before you react, because only when consciousness is placed first do you perceive the world rightly. Seeking second is living as if the world is cause and God is effect. Seeking first is living as if God, presence, consciousness, spirit is cause and the world is effect. This is the entire difference between spiritual freedom and spiritual struggle. Now observe this very carefully. You can read every scripture in the world. You can meditate daily. You can know all the mystical truths of every tradition. And yet, if in the moment of need you turn first to the appearance, all the truth you know will be placed in second position, and it cannot help you. Truth must be first in your consciousness to become effective. It is not enough to know truth. It must be recognized before the mind engages the problem. This is why a person may say, "I know God is with me," and yet tremble before a doctor's report. They know truth intellectually, but they seek it second experientially. A person may say, I know supply is infinite, and yet go into panic when money appears limited. They believe truth conceptually, but they look first to the bank account as their God. This is why spiritually awakened people still suffer, not because they lack truth, but because truth is placed second. My friends, this is the great realization. Seeking second is the only remaining cause of suffering for the spiritually awakened. Seeking first is the doorway out of it. Let this settle into your heart gently. Let it illuminate something in you. Let it reveal where in your own life appearances still occupy the first position in your consciousness. We will explore next why this habit persists, even after profound awakenings, deep insights, and genuine spiritual devotion. Let us continue in the stillness that is gathered here, for only in stillness can we discern the subtle movements of the inner life. Only in stillness can truth be recognized, not as an idea, but as a living presence. Now, my friends, we ask a sincere and necessary question. Why is it that even those who have awakened, even those who have touched the presence, still look to circumstances first? Why is this habit so persistent? Why does it arise almost automatically, even in advanced students? The reason is simple yet profound. You have spent a lifetime, indeed, many lifetimes, trained to believe the outer world is the authority. Before you ever took a spiritual step, before you ever heard the word consciousness, long before you sensed the presence within you, the mind, the body, and the nervous system were taught to react to appearances as if they were powers. This conditioning has been inherited. It is collective. It is the rhythm of the world mind. As infants, before we had words, we learned that food came from outside, comfort came from outside, safety came from outside. As children, we learned that approval, security, belonging, identity, all appeared to come from things and people outside of us. As adults, the world trained us to measure life through bank balances, opinions, relationships, health, achievements, and failures. This conditioning becomes automatic, mechanical, unconscious. And so even after spiritual awakening, even after a moment of illumination, even after sensing God's presence, the body may still react as though the world holds the power. This is why you can be filled with spiritual peace one moment and the next moment fall into fear. The mind says, yes, I know God is within, but the body says, I have learned to fear this appearance. The mind says, yes, I know spirit is cause, but the nervous system says, I must react now. I must defend myself. The intellect says, I know the truth, but the emotions say, I have not yet trusted it fully. You see, truth may enter the mind quickly, but conditioning lives in the subconscious. And that conditioning is what causes the reflexive turn towards circumstances. This is the human experience, and it should be met with compassion, not judgment. No one escapes this conditioning by criticism or discipline. It is softened only through awareness and gentle practice. Understand this clearly. The spiritually awakened person does not suffer because they lack truth. They suffer because the old reflexes of the world mind still operate within them. Even mystical experiences, even profound ones, do not instantly dissolve conditioning. The world mind has momentum. It has grooves, patterns, pathways. It has trained your reactions for decades. But the moment you see this clearly, you are halfway free. Because now you realize, I am not failing. I am simply seeing the residue of my conditioning. I am simply observing a habit that is not the truth of my being. Goldsmith would often say, do not fight the mind, recognize it, observe it, smile at it. For the moment you observe the reflex loses power. The moment you see that fear is conditioned, fear dissolves in the light of awareness. My friends, this is why even those who have awakened still look to circumstances first, because the habit of seeking second is older than your conscious spirituality. It was present long before your realization. It was present long before your meditation practice. It was present long before your first glimpse of the infinite. But take comfort in this truth. Conditioning does not prevent realization. It only delays recognition, and recognition comes more quickly and more easily each time you turn within. As you continue to seek first, moment by moment, quietly, gently, the conditioning weakens, the reflex softens, and the presence begins to shine through automatically. Soon you discover that the same mind that once reacted to every appearance now rests in the presence without effort. And then, where fear once ruled, peace becomes the natural response. Where panic once arose, quiet recognition becomes your resting place. Where the world once dictated your inner state, spirit becomes the only authority. This is the beginning of freedom. Let us continue now, remaining in that gentle awareness of the presence that accompanies us. Let us allow the mind to become soft, the breath unforced, the heart unguarded, so that the truth may reveal itself without strain. In this moment, we begin to understand something essential. Suffering is not caused by the conditions of the world. Suffering is caused by giving those conditions power. The world does not create your fear. Your belief about the world creates your fear. Now we look deeply at this mechanism, not intellectually, but spiritually, so that you may see clearly why seeking second leads directly to suffering. My friends, the moment you look to the outer world first, the moment you believe a circumstance possesses power, you have begun the process of fear. Not because the circumstance is dangerous, but because you have placed your safety outside yourself. You have said, silently, this condition has the power to affect me. This situation has the power to harm me. This appearance has authority over my peace. And when the mind grants authority to something external, fear is the natural consequence. Fear begins the moment you forget that the presence within you is the only power that exists. Let us take an example. A bill arrives. If, before turning within, you look at that bill and say, this determines my well-being, you have already begun to suffer. Not because of the bill, but because you handed it the role of cause, or a symptom appears in the body, the mind immediately says, this can harm me. Fear arises not from the symptom, but from believing the symptom is a power separate from the infinite presence that lives you, or a relationship becomes strained. The heart cries out, this person's approval is my safety. And suffering begins the moment you assign your peace to another human being. You see, fear always begins with the same error, thinking something out there has authority over the I that is the life of your being. Suffering is not punishment. It is the byproduct of misidentification. The human self, believing itself separate, vulnerable, dependent, looks outward for security. And in doing so, it unconsciously says, I am not one with the presence. I must defend myself against the world. This single belief is the root of all fear. The moment you identify with the human sense of self, you live in a universe of threats. But the moment you identify with the Christ, within the divine presence, you discover that nothing external has ever had power over you. Goldsmith taught this tirelessly. Fear is not a condition to remove. Fear is a signal that you are giving power where no power exists. Fear is a teacher. It shows you exactly where you have placed a second power. And there cannot be a second power in spiritual life. There is only one power, the presence, the I am, the infinite consciousness that is the substance and life of all being. So when fear arises, do not judge it. Do not fight it. Do not condemn yourself for feeling it. Fear says only this: somewhere in this moment I am seeking second. That is all. And the moment you recognize this, the moment you say, here I am giving power to appearance again, you have already withdrawn the power you mistakenly assigned. Fear dissolves in the light of recognition. Let me say this gently and clearly. The world cannot hurt you. Only your belief that the world has power can hurt you. Conditions cannot imprison you. Only your belief that conditions define your life can imprison you. Nothing external has ever been the cause of your suffering. It is the belief in separation from the presence that creates the illusion of suffering. This is why suffering persists even in spiritually advanced people, because the belief in a second power persists. Once you see the mechanism clearly, that fear arises whenever you place the world before consciousness. You are no longer captive to it. From this point onward, you will hear fear whisper, and instead of trembling, you will turn within and say, only one power governs my life. Only one presence animates my being. Nothing external can add to me or take from me. I seek first the kingdom. And in that recognition, fear loosens its grip, peace returns, and the inner kingdom reveals itself silently, gracefully, naturally. For fear exists only in the belief that something outside the one can threaten the one, and that is impossible. Let us continue now, gently, as if we were sitting together in the quiet of early morning, when thought is slow, when the heart is receptive, when the presence is near enough to touch. We have spoken of seeking second. We have spoken of the reflexive turn toward appearances, and we have seen why suffering follows. Now we come to the great reversal, the turning point of the spiritual life, the moment in which you begin to make the inner reality your first impulse, your first recognition, your first resting place. My friends, if you understand this one principle and live it, your entire experience of life will begin to shift. To seek first the kingdom means before you look at the problem, you return to the presence. Before you speak, you turn within. Before you react, you pause. Before you plan, you become still. Before you let the appearance define your state, you recognize the infinite as the source and substance of your being. This is not a technique. It is not an affirmation. It is not a mantra. It is a movement of attention, a quiet turning from the world to the truth at the center of your being. Let us make this very practical. Imagine you wake in the morning, before you check your messages, before you search for the day's demands, before the mind begins its usual race, you pause and you acknowledge silently, where I am, God is. The presence goes before me. I and the Father are one, not as a repetition, but as an inner remembering. This one moment shifts the entire foundation of your day. Or suppose a bill arrives, and the mind, trained by years of conditioning, rushes forward in fear. Instead of engaging that reflex, you pause. You turn within. You recognize the infinite. And only then do you look at the bill. For now, you are seeing it from the standpoint of the presence, not from the standpoint of the world mind, or a symptom appears in the body. Before fear floods in, before you assign meaning to the sensation, you pause. You become aware of the stillness. You touch, even briefly, the truth that spirit is the life of your being. And from that recognition, you proceed, or someone speaks harshly, and the old habit is to defend, to react, to strike back emotionally. But instead of reacting instantly, you take that sacred pause. You turn inward. You remember the presence within you and the presence within them. And from that foundation, a gentler response arises. This simple turning is the entire secret. Seeking first the kingdom is not an event. It is a habit of consciousness, a new reflex, a new default. It is learning the holy art of pausing before the world can claim your attention. This reversal, this turning of priorities cannot be forced. It grows naturally the way a flower turns toward the sun. The more you do it, the more effortless it becomes. Now, listen closely. When you seek first the kingdom, you are not trying to make the presence change the condition. You are not trying to attract a better outcome. You are not using God to alter the world. You are simply reestablishing your true standpoint, the standpoint from which you can see correctly. Once you are standing in the inner truth, the outer world rearranges itself automatically. Without your manipulation, without strain, without willpower. Life flows differently when it is lived from the inside out. And so I say to you gently, as I have said to thousands before you, practice the pause, practice the turning, practice the inward glance before the outward response. You need not do this perfectly. You need only do it sincerely. Even a moment of recognition is powerful enough to shift the trajectory of an entire situation. Even a breath of remembrance is enough to dissolve fear. Even the lightest touch of the presence is enough to weaken the grip of appearances. Over time, this turning becomes natural, instinctive, unforced. And then you find yourself living in peace without trying to create peace. You find harmony unfolding without chasing harmony. You find solutions appearing without seeking solutions. You discover that the kingdom you sought was never absent. It awaited only this gentle reversal, this new ordering of priorities in which consciousness, not circumstance, becomes first. This is the essence of the spiritual life. This is the pathway to freedom. This is the great reversal. Let us continue now, my friends, with a deep breath into the silence that already surrounds us. For in the silence, we touch the dimension of life that is untouched by circumstance, untouched by fear, untouched by the noise of the world. In this hour, we come to a principle of profound importance, one that stands at the heart of the infinite way, and one that every sincere seeker must eventually understand. The practice of non-reaction. Now, when I use that phrase, I do not mean suppression. I do not mean that you should numb yourself or pretend that appearances do not arise or that emotions do not move through the body. No, that is not the way of truth. The practice of non-reaction is the spiritual art of not granting power to what appears. It is not the absence of activity. It is the absence of inner resistance, the inner refusal to bow before the world mind. You see, every appearance that arises before you, a bill, a diagnosis, a conflict, a disappointment, comes with a silent suggestion. This has power over you. This demands your fear. This requires your immediate emotional response. And the human mind, conditioned by centuries of survival instinct, reacts almost before the stimulus is even seen. This is the world mind, the collective hypnotism of humanity, using your nervous system as its instrument. But once you begin the practice of non-reaction, you break that hypnotism. You dissolve the world mind at its root. The world mind can only function through your reaction. If you do not react, if you hold still, even for a breath, its power collapses. This is why Goldsmith taught, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Not run, not hide, not fight, not resist, but stand still. Stand in the recognition of the one presence and the one power. Now, let us make this practical, because spirituality that cannot be lived in daily life is merely philosophy. Suppose a sudden fear rises in your chest. Before you do anything, before you attempt to fix the feeling, before you try to think your way out of it, you pause. This pause is your sanctuary. This pause is your protection. This pause is your return to the kingdom within. You turn inward, not trying to fix fear, but acknowledging the presence that stands untouched behind the fear. You do not deny the appearance, but you also do not give it your inner allegiance. Or suppose someone speaks to you harshly. The human mind leaps to defend, to justify, to attack. But the spiritual mind says, be still. Recognize the Christ within them. Recognize the Christ within yourself. And so you pause. You soften inwardly. You refuse to accept the world mind's invitation to join the conflict. Then, from that stillness, your response, if one is needed, arises not from fear, but from presence. Or imagine you receive difficult news. Again, the old reflex tries to rush into panic, but you pause and you remember, there is no power apart from the presence within me. This appearance is not cause, it is effect. Cause is here, where I am. You breathe, you wait, you let the panic dissolve in its own time. You stand in the truth. This is non-reaction. It is not passivity. It is not resignation. It is spiritual clarity. For when you do not react to appearances, you are no longer enslaved by them. You begin to discover a new freedom, a freedom that does not depend on the favorable outcome of events, but on the recognition that the presence within you is the only reality, the only power, the only authority. My friends, every reaction is a confession of faith in a second power. Every pause is a return to the one. Every time you react emotionally, you are saying, this appearance has power over me. Every time you pause, you are saying, only the presence has power, and that presence is here. Do not underestimate this simple practice. It dismantles lifetimes of conditioning. It silences the world mind. It weakens fear at its root. It restores you to your true foundation. In time, this pause becomes natural. Soon, you find that before fear can arise, stillness arises first. Before the mind can panic, the heart remembers. Before the world can speak, the presence speaks within you. This is the fruit of non-reaction. This is the dissolving of the world mind. This is the beginning of freedom. Let us continue now, gently, as though the world had stepped aside for a moment and left only you and the presence that breathes you, sustains you, and lives you. In this section, we cross an inner threshold, a shift so profound it marks the difference between spiritual striving and spiritual realization. The world teaches us to fix conditions, to improve, to manipulate, to correct, to control. It teaches that life is shaped from the outside and that peace is achieved only when circumstances obey our desires. But the spiritual life, the life Jesus taught, the life Joel Goldsmith demonstrated, is a life in which conditions are not fixed, but seen through. It is a life in which we no longer battle appearances, but recognize the truth behind them. My friends, this is the great pivot point, the turning of consciousness from material cause to spiritual cause. As long as you attempt to fix the outer world, you remain bound to it. You become its slave. You must constantly chase new solutions, calm new fears, patch new problems. But when you shift from fixing to recognizing, from manipulating appearances to acknowledging truth, you step into a life governed not by human effort, but by spiritual law. Let us explore this with clarity, recognizing truth instead of fighting appearances. Suppose illness appears in the body. The world mind urges you, fight the condition, attack it, fear it, and so you react, and your reaction strengthens the appearance. But the spiritual seeker pauses and turns inward. You are not ignoring the appearance. You are refusing to grant it power. And in the quiet of recognition, you remember the great truth. Spirit is the substance of your body. Wholeness is the nature of your being. There is no power apart from the presence. You are not treating the illness. You are recognizing the truth that exists where illness seems to be, and because consciousness is cause, that truth begins to dissolve the false appearance or take financial difficulty. The world mind says, hurry, scramble, worry, figure it out. Your supply is at risk. And in that suggestion, you reveal your belief that supply is material. But the spiritual seeker pauses, and in that pause, you remember, supply is not money. Supply is the infinite outpouring of divine consciousness. Money is merely one form. You are not treating the financial condition. You are recognizing the truth that abundance is already present, already established, already complete. From this recognition, the outer world reorganizes in ways you could never engineer. Or consider relationships. Conflict arises. The mind rushes in to justify, to defend, to blame. But the spiritual seeker pauses. And in that pause, you remember the Christ is the reality of this person. The Christ is the reality of myself. There is no conflict in Christ. You are not fixing the relationship. You are recognizing the truth behind the appearance of discord. And harmony flows from that recognition. Why fixing never works? Let us be very clear. When you try to fix a condition, you are affirming that the condition has substance. You are saying, this is real enough to fight. But appearances have no life of their own. They are shadows cast by thought, expressions of a belief in separation. Every condition you fight gains strength. Every condition you see through dissolves. This is the secret. This is why Joel Goldsmith insisted we do not treat conditions. We recognize truth. Truth does not change the appearance. Truth reveals that the appearance never had reality. This is the shift from a life of fixing to a life of seeing. Recognition is not thinking, it is awareness. Now, let me say something gently. Recognition is not an intellectual affirmation. It is not repeating words. It is a quiet inner knowing. It is resting in the presence until you feel the stillness beneath the problem. It is abiding in the truth until the appearance loses its authority. You are not trying to change the world. You are seeing the world from the standpoint of the infinite. From that standpoint, all problems become shadows, and truth becomes the only reality, the fruit of recognition. When you begin living from recognition instead of reaction, life becomes simpler, quieter, more aligned. You find yourself acting without urgency, responding without fear, making decisions without anxiety, moving through life from the inside out. And conditions begin to change without your effort, because they are no longer fueled by belief. This is the beginning of spiritual mastery. Not mastery over the world, but mastery over illusion. You no longer live to fix appearances. You live to abide in truth, and truth becomes the shaping power of your life. This is the shift that Jesus demonstrated. This is the shift Joel Goldsmith lived. This is the shift now awakening in you. Let us continue, my friends, in the same stillness that has accompanied us through this journey. Let the mind grow quiet now. Let the body rest. Let the heart soften. For what we enter here is not merely an idea, but a way of life, a way of being, a way of living from a dimension beyond human effort. The world teaches us to live by effort, to strive, to struggle, to plan, to push, to force outcomes through will and labor. The world says your life is only as secure as your ability to fight for it. And so humanity lives in exhaustion, spiritually tired, mentally burdened, physically strained, trying to make life conform to desire through effort. But in the spiritual life, in the life Jesus demonstrated and Joel Goldsmith embodied, there is another way, a way called grace. Grace is not reward. Grace is not divine favoritism. Grace is not something dispensed from above. Grace is the natural activity of the one presence. When the human self stops resisting, stops manipulating, stops trying to live life by personal will. Grace is what flows when you stop trying to control life and begin trusting the infinite intelligence that already governs all. Let us explore this deeply. Grace is the activity of divine consciousness. You are not here to manage the universe. You are not here to manipulate people, to wrestle circumstances into alignment, to force your life into shape. You are here to awaken to the presence that lives you and to let that presence express itself as harmony, peace, and unfoldment. Grace is simply this: God living its own life as you without your interference. Human effort interferes. It says, I must fix this. Grace whispers, be still. It is already done. Human effort says, I must reach my goals. Grace says, your path is unfolding perfectly. Human effort says, I must protect myself. Grace says, there is no power apart from the presence. Human effort says, I must make things happen. Grace says, allow what is already moving through consciousness to appear. The shift from effort to grace is the shift from separation to oneness, the end of personal will. Listen carefully now. As long as you believe you are a separate self, a little human mind navigating a dangerous world, you will live by effort. Effort belongs to the sense of separation. But the moment you recognize I and the Father are one, effort dissolves naturally. In that recognition, you do not become passive, You become aligned. Your actions no longer come from fear, but from inner guidance. Your decisions no longer come from force, but from quiet knowing. Your steps no longer come from anxiety, but from the rhythm of the infinite moving through you. Where human will once led, grace now flows. Examples of living by grace. Let us bring this into lived experience. A business challenge arises. The old habit is to scramble, strategize, tighten, fear. But grace begins with inner stillness. You turn within, you acknowledge the presence, and from that recognition, an idea arises. One you did not force, one you did not strain to produce. That idea is grace in action. Or a relationship enters conflict. The old habit is to defend, argue, resist. But grace begins with non-reaction. You turn within. You feel the stillness beneath the emotion. And from that stillness, words arise. Soft, clear, healing. Those words are grace in action. Or the body presents a condition. Human effort rushes to fear and control. But grace begins with recognition. You turn within and acknowledge, spirit is the life of my being. Wholeness is my reality. You do not try to heal the body. You simply stop interfering with the wholeness already present. The improvement that follows is grace revealing itself. Grace produces what effort cannot. Grace does what human effort never could. Effort tries to build your life. Grace expresses the life that already exists within you. Effort tries to achieve peace. Grace is peace. Effort tries to manifest abundance. Grace is the flow of infinite supply. Effort seeks healing. Grace reveals that wholeness has never been absent. You see, my friends, effort belongs to the realm of fear. Grace belongs to the realm of truth. As long as you strive, you affirm lack. As long as you struggle, you affirm separation. As long as you force outcomes, you deny the presence. Grace requires only one thing. Stop trying to live life through the human mind and let the divine live its life through you. That is the essence of seeking first the kingdom. You are not seeking solutions. You are seeking the presence. And once the presence is realized, solutions flow without struggle. The inner feeling of grace. You will know when you begin living by grace, for your life will take on a new texture. You feel carried, not burdened. You feel guided, not confused. You feel supported, not alone. You feel at peace, even before conditions change. You feel a quiet confidence without any visible reason. This is not imagination. This is not wishful thinking. This is the unmistakable movement of grace. Grace becomes the atmosphere in which your life unfolds. And the more you seek the kingdom within, the more grace governs the kingdom without. This is the life intended for you. Not a life of effort, but a life of flow. Not a life of fear, but a life of trust. Not a life of striving, but a life of spiritual unfolding. Grace is not something to achieve. Grace is something to stop resisting. Let yourself be carried. Let yourself be guided. Let yourself rest in the infinite. This is living by grace. And now, my friends, we come to the closing of this sacred time together. But let us understand something clearly. The spiritual journey does not end when the words stop. It does not begin when the video plays, nor end when the chapter concludes. The kingdom is not found in these teachings. It is not found in the sentences, not in the concepts, not even in the inspiration you may feel. The kingdom is found only in you, in the silent, living presence that has been whispering to you between every paragraph, between every breath, between every moment of recognition. What we have explored together, seeking first the kingdom, non-reaction, recognition over effort, grace over striving. These are not spiritual ideas. They are invitations. Invitations to return again and again to the inner sanctuary that has never left you. As we conclude, let us sink into that sanctuary now. Let us gently withdraw from the noise of the mind, not by force, not by concentration, not by discipline, but by simple willingness. The willingness to remember there is only one presence, there is only one power, there is only one life, and that life is living you, breathing you, expressing itself as you here and now. Let the tension of the body melt. Let the striving of the mind loosen. Let the world fall away for a moment and rest in what remains. In this stillness, you are no longer seeking God. You are abiding in God. In this stillness, you are no longer trying to solve your life. You are recognizing the presence that lives it. In this stillness, you discover that the kingdom you were asked to seek was never somewhere else. It was the very ground of your being. And now, slowly, gently, let this realization settle into the heart. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You could not be separate from the presence. Even if you tried, the kingdom is within you. It always has been. And every moment you remember this, your entire life aligns with truth. As you go forward from this teaching into your home, into your relationships, into your work, into the challenges and opportunities of daily life. Carry this single awareness. Before anything else, before any reaction, before any fear, turn within, seek first. Just a breath, just a pause, just the slightest recognition is enough to open the door to the grace that desires to express through you. This is not the end. It is the beginning, a beginning that happens fresh in every moment, in every breath, in every inward turning. The kingdom is already here. The presence is already complete. The truth is already established. You need only recognize. And now, let the final words of this teaching dissolve into silence. Where you are, the infinite is. What you are, the divine lives. And as you seek first the kingdom within, everything else unfolds in perfect, effortless grace. Peace be with you, not the world's peace, but the peace that has no opposite.